Redstone. One of the most interesting materials in the game to fiddle with, and for those whose attention it snares, one of the most maniacal systems to dive into. Because I love boiling my brain into mush trying to understand it, I've been tinkering on and off with Redstone since it was first obtained in the family world. And yes, I've willingly avoided watching videos about it so I can discover it on my own as much as possible. But in the end, I got one spoiler that'll be important later in the video. So while I may not understand all of it, I'm proud to say that when it comes to what I do know, I'm mostly self-taught. So while I know that I am not the most proficient, I still want to show what I've been able to do with Redstone tech so far, and I have a few contraptions lined up to show. For additional context, I made a copy of the family world to collect some of the footage, so I can use spectator mode to phase through things and show the inner workings, or the guts, of the machines, without the risk of breaking them. Not only that, but as I'm the only one so far in the family world that has dived into Redstone and not watched almost any outside videos, my terminology in this may not be what other people use, as it is exclusive to myself. Starting with the front door, soon after the start of the family world, we collected enough materials, and I knew the first thing to do was make the front door a little more fancy. The first hurdle was getting the door to open from both sides, so I had to make what I called a dual input system while inverting the piston's standard power setting, meaning this needs two buttons to activate the same machine, one inside and one outside, and without it screwing up. The next one meaning I need the pistons to stay on and in a closed formation, with the buttons temporarily powering it off to open the door and immediately closing a moment later. I was able to do this by having the door itself attached to a redstone block connected to an unpowered piston. In its resting position, the redstone block naturally powers the door to stay closed, and each button is linked to this hidden piston on each side. And when powered, this piston will push the redstone block into a hole and breaking the connection to the door, depowering it and opening the door until the button releases, reinstating power and closing it behind you. The next one is my paper printing machine. With the family world having a few ways to get a respectable amount of bone meal in a short time, and I not wanting to farm massive amounts of sugarcane by hand, began tinkering again, and came up with a simple dispenser and piston combo. The dispenser is hooked up to a double chest with hoppers, so I can load a massive amount of bone meal into it, while the pistons are to break the top two parts of the sugarcane while leaving the bottom intact, and both are linked to an exposed circuit with repeaters to cycle and perpetuate the signal at the same time, powering one, then the other in rapid succession. So now the reason this is exposed is so I can use a redstone torch like a key to starting an engine. By placing and breaking it fast, this will start the sequence, and I can use the AFK room right beside it to safely wait until it's done. But this machine itself is not yet finished. The waterfall, not only allowing the sand to hold the sugarcane, will help catch and guide the broken fragments into hoppers linked to a chest. Now this used to be all, and I would have to craft the sugarcane into paper manually. But a little while ago, I figured out how to use the autocrafter and comparators for this machine. So now, the sugarcane is split into two separate feeds, or pipelines, each with an autocrafter in the middle like a checkpoint, set in the proper manner to craft paper, with the comparators monitoring the crafter and activating a piston with a redstone block to power the crafter only when it is ready to make paper. Then the crafter will spit out the paper into the other half of the pipeline, funneling it back into a single double chest. fresh and ready to use. Now for a newer generation in fancy door tech. While it has gone through one upgrade since I made it, this is still the first generation secret door. For my skill level, this is utilizing a complex multi-piston system turning off and on in proper sequence, while hooked up to a calibrated skulk sensor on the front side. Yep, this is an automated walk-through door. Now in order for the sensor to work, I maybe could have used less wool to get the same effect, but it was my first time using skulk in my redstone, so please forgive me. I used the wool to block sound detection in unwanted angles, while leaving the downward direction close to the entry point without wool to focus it in that direction. So, while the door is always on to stay closed, the sensor, when activated, will temporarily power off the door, but on its own, the sensor doesn't last long enough to keep the door open. So I was able to rig up a bunch of isolated cords connected to it, 3 with varying amounts of repeaters to hold the charge, and 1 without, for fast activation. All of this is to create a decaying charge that would last long enough to safely pass through. Just like the first door, 2 hidden pistons with a redstone block each naturally power both sides of the door in the resting position, and break connection when powered. The 4 main pistons to each side are 2 sets for 2 purposes. One is to set the blocks into the wall or pull it back, while the other is for storage, pulling the block itself out of the way to make a walkway and putting it back into the reach of the first set when closing up. I remember spending actual days trying to figure out the proper way to get the redstone to perform how I wanted, especially the storage pistons activating first but turning off last. Because I also built myself into a corner with the position of everything, thankfully I found a cheap but a little bit of a smart way to exit. When leaving the secret room, there's a button that's not actually hooked up to anything, but it is in range of the sensor and makes noise, activating the door all the same. Before we go to the next one, do you remember that spoiler I mentioned a little bit ago? Well, now that's coming into play. I can't remember the video I was watching, but I remember something from a comment section I was scrolling through, and it was that in Bedrock, if a redstone contraption is too large or complicated, the redstone gets some strange timing issues. Another part is that while I made the next project, I didn't have a room to accompany it. And now for my latest indoor tech. This is my largest redstone walk-through door yet, featuring more repeaters and pistons than I can shake a stick at. This doorway actually breaks past the safety limit and had that redstone timing bug appear. But in the end, I got it to work. This uses 3 pistons turning off and on in sequence for each block in the doorway. Now all the repeaters were supposed to be uniform. The size problem forced me to slap on a few band-aids to fix it. Even if there were no bugs, this headache-inducing setup is what I needed to achieve my goal. 1 piston for the wall itself, but now 2 pistons for storage. 1 for the block, and the other for the wall piston. Funny, a piston to hold another piston. With redstone and repeaters running throughout all angles, using the same power inversion system like its predecessors, but with 2 sensors this time, 1 for each side, allowing for a complete, no buttons pressed experience. My last invention so far has been an automatic trash can, using a chest, hopper, and dropper hooked up to a comparator with 1 repeater and some redstone. Aimed at a contained spot of lava, you can throw multiple stacks of trash into the chest and this will start destroying them one by one. Easily one of my favorite inventions so far. Just be careful when using it. My brother accidentally threw one of the max enchanted bows in there, so I'll most likely add a safety feature after this. While I know that there is still so much more to figure out, I'm happy with what I've been able to make so far, and I've already been trying to think of ways to add more things like minecarts and observers into the mix. But with this being as far as I've gone for now, this will be the end of the video. Thank you for watching.